So we finally made it to the end of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. The first 10 episodes, the first season is behind us now. And this video, we're going to talk about the full season. I want to share my thoughts on it. Since I was unable to keep up with doing reviews episode by episode due to my move, I figured now is just the perfect time to discuss everything that happened this season, how I feel about it, my overall thoughts on the characters, the narrative. And, I got to tell you, overall, considering it is a show about monsters, considering it's a show about the monsterverse, I thought it was a solid start. I kind of feel like the show was kind of a roller coaster. It started pretty strong, it got weak in the middle, and then I thought it ended strong, especially with last night's episode 10, which was a really, really good episode. The strengths of this show, I would say, is managing, for all the criticisms that the show got in terms of the narrative, I do think it was able to do a good job maintaining interest with the lack of the monster action. I think, many people who are here on the channel, many people who've been to the live streams, we've discussed this for a long time, ever since we heard the announcement of the show some time ago, that this was likely not going to be a monster heavy show. If you know anything about the CGI and the cost of developing assets and rendering long periods of CG scenes, that there was no way they were going to have the budget to do that. So it was very important that the show had at least a good narrative to carry through while highlighting monsters in certain effective areas. The thing of it is that I personally had been looking for a Monarch, or at least something that gives us more insight into Monarch, more lore into the company. And I will say that I'm happy with where the show has started in terms of this season, whether or not we get a season 2, which I'm pretty sure we will, and where they go from there. I'm looking forward to it. Now, character-wise, it was a bit of a one side versus another. You had the three main characters from the past in, Shaw, Rhonda, and Mrs. Rhonda as well, but Keiko. And then you had the current characters, Kentaro, you had Kate, you had May, to some degree, Tim. And it was a bit of a night and day. You know what I mean? I think everybody agrees that the characters from the past were much more endearing, much more effective, much more interesting, where the present day characters were a little bit more hit and miss, touch and go. Kate, we'll start with Kate. Kate, I thought was okay. A lot of people didn't like her. A lot of people found her insufferable. I can understand that. The very beginning of the show, the very early part of the show, she came off to be very callous, very cold. And a lot of people didn't like that. But, we're all looking at it from a very mid perspective, where we're not kind of, you kind of have to see things from her perspective. If you're someone who's going to take care of your father's, lasting, his personal effects and things like that after he dies, then, and then you come to find out that he had a whole second life without you, and a whole wife, and a whole other child, I think it would be, and then on top of that, you're upset at him because he abandoned you a year or so ago. Then to come off that way, to come off cold and callous, especially to this second family you had no idea about or was clueless about, it actually makes perfect sense. I know a lot of people were starting to throw the woke word around, and look, if you want to see a woke, insufferable female character, go watch The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Galadriel is a prime example of that. Kate, I don't think is that character, because later on in the show, she does start to warm up, specifically to Kentaro. She does show moments of vulnerability. She doesn't really have any boss bitch moments. And the opportunities where she would have had that, she took a back seat to Shaw. One example I use is when they're flying to Alaska and they're hitting bad weather, and Shaw kind of takes over the plane, and she kind of just sits back and lets him direct her. That's a small example of what I mean. Again, that doesn't mean you have to like her. I completely understand why people don't like her, but I do think she kind of warmed up a little bit. With that said, she wasn't she was to me an average character. I didn't hate her. I didn't overly love her. She was just okay. Kintaro started off pretty good, and then I kind of feel like they ran out of things to do with him. Like after his signature episode where he's kind of hallucinating about his dad and stuff like that. I feel like after that, he really had no purpose. They really didn't know what to do with him, and he kind of got lost in the shuffle as the show went forward. May, to me, May could have been anybody else. May didn't even have to be connected to Kintaro in any way. And I'm not even 100% sure she had to be there. When I look at the show and I think about some of her big moments, there weren't moments that even necessarily needed her. The reveal of Apex, that is something easily that could have happened at any other given moment that didn't require her. I thought May was probably the weakest of all the main 6. And, I don't know where they're going to go with her. And then the mixed messaging of what her relationship was with Kate. Some people thought they were going to maybe start getting a little closer, knowing that Kate was gay. But then it was kind of like maybe they're just friends. It's really just mixed messaging. It kind of feels like they weren't sure where to go with that. And they just decided to leave it in there and just kind of let us decide what we think they are. So I don't know what that was all about. If you want to call it controversial episode where they reveal that Kate is gay, this is something that's actually kind of funny. A lot of people weren't surprised by this, and some people even predicted it. I myself did not. I don't really care one way or the other, but I will say that I thought going back to her past and revealing that through a flashback, within the circumstance that it was in, didn't really feel like it made a difference. Like, whether or not she's gay is irrelevant. I don't think that is something that matters in the overall scheme of things of the story they were trying to tell. It also, sometimes people use this line like, oh, it felt forced. I'm not going to say it felt forced. It was forced. There was really no need for that. Like, you can have the character be gay without going through a 10-minute flashback that emphasizes the fact that she's gay and that emphasizes the fact that she's a cheater. That really didn't fit what they were trying to do. It kind of felt like in that episode, they kind of tailed off just to make that point. And these are the things that upset people. It's one thing if you're going to have a gay character, it's one thing if the character, but if it doesn't feel organic, if you're going to continue to force it, like so many of these entertainment companies are doing with their movies or their TV shows, this is why people get more and more frustrated. This is why people get more and more resentful towards narratives that may have a gay character or may have a gay scene or two. So this is something that this needs to be done better going forward. It doesn't, and I'm not talking about just the Monsterverse. I'm just saying in general, have gay characters all you want, but you got to make it feel organic. It's got to fit the writing. It's got to go with the narrative. And in this particular case, it just did not. It just didn't make any sense whatsoever that it had no relevance to anything. Now, on the flip side, the other characters, that dynamic was much more appealing. They felt like a family, which, again, not that you should expect the other 3 to feel like a family, but you would expect them, going to Kate, Kintaro, and May, you would expect them to get a little bit closer, maybe a little bit sooner. I think that they kind of waited too late for them to grow on each other a little bit. When you're going through that many dramatic events, usually people tend to bond faster. Where in the past, you have, Bill, Dr. Murin, and you have Shaw, who also didn't know each other, and you just kind of felt like they bonded faster. They all had a purpose, and the parallel is much stronger with the characters in the past. I thought Bill Randa's character was really good, very funny, very light comedy, wasn't overly dorky or corny, didn't try to overdo it. He had his light moments that were effective. Nothing gut-busting, but it didn't have to be. Shaw was a character that I liked. I liked his growth from the past, starting off as a hard-nosed soldier and becoming more and more interested and more involved in trying to help the Randas build up Monarch. And then, of course, the Doctor was a standout. Wonderful actress, and she was... I I like how they highlight how tough it was for her to be in the position that she was in given the time period, because that's a very true thing. So all 6 characters, you know, obviously, and I think everybody would agree, the characters from the past were the bigger standouts, and the characters from the present time were hit or miss, most times miss, and even when they were good, they just were not nearly as good as the characters from the past. In terms of the overall narrative and opening up Monarch and opening up the lore of Monarch through the Randa family, I like that. I like that. I kind of feel the pursuit of Hiroshi was a little underwhelming at the end of it all. You know, I was just expecting something bigger. It didn't feel like 10 episodes was worth the pursuit of one character and some answers. So, you know, to that, again, maybe that's something they can improve on if they get a second season. But looking into Monarch, seeing how it started from the very beginning and how it's grown, and I like how Monarch in the show is a very gray organization. It's not the heroic organization they've made it out to be in the movies. I love the fact that it's very gray. I did like Tim. Tim was a very good supporting character. And to me, he got better with the show as the show went further. And I do like the whole learning about Monarch, and I'm looking forward to learning more. I do like the fact that they got Apex involved early. That makes Apex feel more impactful and more important when you go back and you view Godzilla vs. Kong. So I just think overall the narrative was pretty good. You know, it wasn't something outstanding or groundbreaking, but I thought overall that part was good. In terms of the monster action, I think they did an excellent job providing monsters when they needed to. They didn't oversaturate. They couldn't afford to, even if they wanted to. But they didn't oversaturate. They used the monsters when they needed to. They had some interesting monsters that were new. So, you know, the Ion Dragon, the Frostvark, you know what I mean? A couple of monsters from Axis Mundi. And again, I thought that was good. They used them when it was necessary. They were entertaining to watch. They meant more and were more impactful because of the fact that we weren't bombarded with them. And the end fight between the Ion Dragon and Godzilla was very short, but it was very effective. You know, it didn't have to be a big 5-minute battle. It was nice that it was short, it was sweet, it was impactful, and realistically, Godzilla should have shit all over that thing. The fact that the Ion Dragon got a bite and a couple of hits in was saying a lot. But Godzilla mowing through him pretty quickly, that's how it should be. That's what Godzilla's all about. I know there's some people out there who wanted more monster action, but if you've really been paying attention to the development of this show, and if, you know, I think I want to be very, very forthcoming when I say this. If you're upset because there were no more monster action in this show than you wanted, then to be honest, that's a you problem. Everyone who's been keeping up with the show, everyone who even knows, you know, not only myself, but other content creators who know how the business kind of runs, just based on the experience that we've had and interactions we've had, we knew right away this wasn't going to be, excuse me, that's my computer. We knew right away this wasn't going to be a monster heavy action show, because they just can't afford to do that. There's a reason why these big movies have a budget of 200+ million or whatever the case may be. It's because CGI, the manpower to produce CGI, and the rendering time, and the amount of electricity power, that bills that have to be paid, the cost is astronomical. And you know, when you're doing a show and you're on a tighter budget than you are for a movie, especially over the course of 10 episodes, you're just not going to be able to do it. And the fact that they actually used new assets, you know, Frostvark and Ion Dragon were completely new monsters. It's not like they saved money by going to the well and bringing in other monsters that we had seen before, which would have been a smart thing, but I'm kind of glad they didn't. That just goes to show that at least they made the time and the investment to give us something fresh. So I think overall, Monarch Legacy of Monsters was a solid first season. It sure as hell wasn't perfect. It was a bit of a roller coaster. I thought the first 3 episodes were fairly strong, and I thought the next 4 episodes after that were mid to weak. And then I thought the last 3 episodes were really, really good, with the 10th one obviously being the standout. So it'll be interesting to see how things are going to play out going forward now that Kate, May, and the Doc have come back, and it's 2 years past. So now they're in 2017. Apex is on Skull Island, and on top of that, Kong showed up at the end of the show. So we're going to see how this is going to impact the next season, if there is a next season, and if any of this is going to play out in, sorry, you can probably hear my little puppy barking in the background, and how this is going to play out in the movie Godzilla x Kong. So anyway, but that's it for this video. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about the Monarch show overall. I thought it was a solid start, you know, and I'm hoping it goes up from here. And if you want to talk about it more, we are going to talk about it in more detail tonight on tonight's stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll be talking more about the Monarch show, and as well, I'm going to be doing my Godzilla tier list. People have been asking me to rank the Godzilla movies for the longest time, and I figured now would be a good time to do it. I'm not going to wait until Godzilla x Kong, because I suspect I'm not going to be ranking that very high. So, you know, and that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean I think the movie's going to be crap. I'm sure I'm going to love the movie, but there are obviously other Godzilla movies that I can already know will be better than this one. So anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about the first season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. And until later, I'll talk to you guys. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.